start the demo. I'm going to navigate to Supervisor Studies. And notice that I am using Chrome today. And I'm going to go ahead and click on my March webinar study. And you might note that when I right-click on my question, that I have access to Ascribe Coder. I don't have access to Review Responses or Code This Question or Phrase Analyzer when I'm using Chrome. All right? Those tools are not available through Chrome. Just letting you know that. If you want to access Phrase Analyzer, you will still need to use IE. Okay. In we go to Ascribe Coder. All right, this is Ascribe Coder, and actually, I meant to clean that up, so let me just go into this guy here. I should have a code book here as well. There we go. Okay, so this is Ascribe Coder, and just to begin with, it was based on review responses, or it is based on review responses, very similar to review responses. We have our codebook over here on the right side of the screen. We'll be returning our responses over here on the left side of the screen. So codebook pane, response pane. Our navigation menus, our right-click navigation menus, are no longer active in this window. If we want to navigate to another place in Ascribe, we actually click on the navigation icon. And as Ascribe is being modernized, you'll see more and more of this, where if we want to go somewhere else, if I want to go home, if I want to go to the transcriber area of Ascribe, then I would click on the navigation icon to get there, or even if I want to go back to the questions page. Right? Also, I like to point out, and I meant to point this out this morning and didn't, the help system, the help for Ascribe Coder is pretty much complete. So you can find help items for everything in Ascribe Coder. Our March release at the end of this month, we'll see an improvement to the way the help is laid out. So I'm pretty excited about that. But for now, when you click on help, you do get the help system. You can go to the table of contents and click on Ascribe Coder, and you'll notice that there's a help item for everything in Ascribe Coder has been documented here. Okay. And now I'm going to pop back out to the questions page and come back in. There we go. Okay. Codebook, responses will be returned over here on the left side. To the right of our navigation icon is our response toolbar. So these are our response toolbars or tools. Then we have our multi-response mode and our single response mode. All the demos I do, I pretty much stay in multi-response mode. I do need to schedule a webinar for the single response mode, and I should be doing that for later this month. At the bottom of the page is our questions area. And if I click on this, you'll see my question, the question that I'm currently coding is expanded. If I'm coding across shared code books, all the questions that I'm pulling responses from will be listed here. And I can use the resize bar to change, you know, where the screen, how big this pane is, I guess, to resize the pane. Okay, I click the little toggle button on the resizer bar, and it takes this back down so that now this just says questions. And that's a quick way for me to open my question info. Notice that there's also a resizer bar in the middle of the screen that allows us to resize. You hit that toggle bar, and it will minimize the response pane so that all you're seeing is your codebook and your codebook toolbar here at the top. All right, so that's kind of the layout, the general overview. So now let's actually get into the codebook and what we can do with the codebook. I will do just a quick search here so that I can bring up a few responses. Here we go. So you can see what it looks like with the codebook over here. Now, the codebook is automatically locked. Okay, so I'm going to talk about first what we can do with the codebook locked. And the first thing I want to do is actually turn on my counts and my output ID, both of which are on, and I've also got my output ID turned on for my nets. Okay, so I was going to say, where are my counts? They're down here. My counts are just down here below. So again, the first thing I did was turn on my counts and my output ID. so that I see those over here on the left side of the screen. Once we set those, they stick until we change them again. So if I change the output ID for my nets now, it's changed. And I should say that these settings, this Show tab, applies to the codebook whether it's locked or unlocked. Okay? We do have specific settings for when it's locked, when it's unlocked, but we'll talk more about that when I do the deep dive into the codebook toolbar in another webinar. Okay, so when the codebook is locked, there's a couple things I can do. I can actually, for one, I can apply codes. We all know that, I think. The other thing I can do, I can actually right-click on a code and change the code properties. Okay, so if there's something that I needed to change down here, maybe if I need to add something more to my regular expression, maybe I want to add improved look to my regular expression, I can do that. Okay, I could also change the color of my code. Notice that when I click on a color, it tells me, it shows me an example of what the code will look like, or the color the code will be. So if I change it to green and hit OK, so now I've edited this code. So again, when the codebook is unlocked, I can right-click, hit Code Properties, and change any of the code properties. All right? Also, when the codebook is unlocked, I can insert new codes. So if I need to add a new code, I can right-click and choose Insert Code, and it will add a new code. I can add a new code. I'm going to just call this New Code, and I'll make this one green too. And hit OK. So I can edit code properties, or I can insert a new code. Something that I want to point out is that when I insert a new code, if I right-click on the subnet and choose Insert Code, I've got the option to insert below or into. If I insert below, it's going to create a code at the same level as the subnet. Notice that it's at the same level. Okay? If I hit Insert Into, it's going to create a code at the top level. It's going to create a code that reports to the subnet, and it's going to add it to the top of the list here. Okay? But one thing I wanted to point out, when we do this, when we choose Insert Code Into, notice that it's suggesting code 32. It's suggesting codes based on the numbers, based on my net numbers instead of my code numbers. So I just want to make sure I point that out because that's been kind of a source of confusion for us. So when we right-click on the subnet and choose Insert Code Into, it's suggesting code 32 because that's the next available code. When we start looking, when we look at the subnet code value of 3, it goes until it finds the next next available value. It counts up. But if I right-click inside the net on a code, right-click, Insert Code, it's suggesting code 662. All right. So it suggested code 662 because it was the next available. I just want to make sure we understand that as we're inserting codes, it's best to actually click on the code you'd like it to fall under if you also are numbering your codes consecutively. Okay. So with the codebook locked, we can edit code properties. We can insert a new code. We can also delete empty codes. So if there's a code that's empty, we can right-click on it and hit delete. All right? Users that have coder-only privileges cannot unlock the codebook, right? The codebook is locked at all times if we have coder-only access to Ascribe, okay? So if you have people that are coding, you can now make them, give them coder-only access, and they can still add to the codebook, they can still edit existing codes, and they could delete empty codes. But what they couldn't do is unlock the codebook, which we're going to do in a second. Okay? One more thing, with the codebook locked, we have this option to set the toggle focus or change the toggle focus. And the toggle focus allows us to edit our codebook using our keyboard. Okay? So if I click on a code and hit toggle focus, all I'm saying is, hey, I want to activate my keyboard controls. So when I hit my arrow button down, I'm arrowing through the codes. Hit up, I'm arrowing through the codes. I hit enter, I open the code that I'm on. I hit escape, I close that code. Okay? I hit insert, it inserts a new code with the next available code ID. So let's just go ahead. New code. And then I can hit enter, and it adds the new code. So again, this allows us to edit our code book staying on the keyboard using the insert key, the delete key, the escape key, the arrow up and down, and the tab key. So when I'm actually in a code, I hit tab to get to the next section. Okay? Escape out of that. All right, again, that's toggle focus. We can turn that off. That's if we need to do, you know, maybe we're adding a lot of codes. We're in codebook creation mode. We might do it that way. All right? Okay. One more thing that I want to talk about, and we can actually do this. I want to talk about the search. So the search allows us to find codes in our codebook, and I will talk more about that when we talk about the actual codebook tools. But I just wanted to make sure. So if I look for other, it brings up all the codes that have the word other in it. When I close it, it goes back to my regular code list. I hit search again. Maybe I want to find my others again. There we go. I hit enter, and it finds them. Wanted to make sure I covered that. That's our search. Now let's talk about unlocking our codebook. When we unlock our codebook, again, those users that have coder privilege only, you have to have, let me just say this, you have to have supervisor privilege to unlock your codebook. Okay? So when you have your codebook unlocked, you get 4 new tools. All right? They're the delete tool, the color tool, the renumber tool, and the change case tool. These tools apply to any codes that we have selected. So notice they're kind of grayed out right now. So if I want to renumber my codes, what I'll do is right-click on the codebook node and hit Select Descendants Codes. And it selects all my codes. Notice it tells me up here I've got 47 codes selected. Okay? When I've got codes selected, these tools light up. And I can hit the renumber. And I can say, you know what, I want to renumber these, and I will start with 6001. I'll do this in increments of 1 and hit renumber. So now those codes have been renumbered. Okay? So again, these tools apply to the codes that we have selected. All right? You can deselect individuals, or I can right-click and hit deselect all, and it deselects all of them. So now let me right-click and select the nets. And this time I'm going to change the case of my nets. Maybe I want my nets to be uppercase. So now all my nets are uppercase. Okay? So again, these 4 tools apply to what we have selected. I'm going to hit deselect all. All right? And you'll notice that there's a few options here. You can select unused codes, empty nets, used nets, so on and so forth. The important thing to remember is that, you know, after you select and you do whatever you want to do with the ones that are selected, I'll change the color of these guys. There we go. To right-click and hit deselect. It always tells us how many we have selected up here. Deselect all. Okay, there we go. All right.
Laura,
so,
Laura,
yes?
Hey, sorry, can you show the renumbering again?
Oh, sure.
Specifically, if I want to ignore some codes, can you talk about that?
Oh, yes, sure. Let's set that up real quick down here. Okay, let me go ahead and deselect all, and we'll set this up. What I'm going to do, I know that a lot of us. Sorry, Julie.
I also want to mention there's a question about what's the difference between a sibling and descendants. So if you can
sure.
address those, thank you.
I think I might be able to address that. Remind me in just a second if I forget. Okay. Okay. So I've changed my code values for my nothing and don't know to 9998 and 9999. Okay, I know that's kind of common. So when I right-click and I select descendants codes, okay, I've selected all my descendants, the ones that you know, all the codes that report. And now I'm going to choose renumber. And notice I have an ignore over here. I can tell it I want to ignore 998, 9998, and 9999. Okay? So now let's renumber. This time let's start with 5001. There we go. Okay. And I hit renumber, and it renumbers my codes, except for, if I did this right, yes, my 9998 and my 9999. Okay? So when you want it to ignore something, you just put a space between those output values that you want it to ignore. All right? Now let's talk, does that cover that one, Julie? Is that okay?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about select descendants, and let me go ahead and deselect all. Okay, so when I click on the main node of my codebook, my only option is to select descendants, okay, because everything's reporting to the codebook node. But notice when I click on my, let's just click on my efficacy net and right-click, I can select siblings, okay? So if I select siblings, I've got the option for codes. I don't think there are any sibling codes for my efficacy net, but there are for my overall positive. Let me just show you this. Sibling codes. It should select the nothing and don't know. Sibling codes are codes that are at the same level, okay, as overall positive. So these are top level codes. So those are sibling codes. So my sibling net would be the overall negative neutral net. All right? So siblings are those codes or nets that are at the same level. So if I right-click on this appearance to hair subnet and I select sibling nets, it's all the nets that are at the same level that also report to the efficacy net. Okay? So their siblings are same level codes or same level nets or subnets. Gosh, I don't think I'm explaining that right or explaining that well. But Julie, any help there on how siblings and descendants are reporting to? Siblings are just same level. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer those questions?
I think so, Laura.
Cool. Thank you for those questions. All right. So we talked about these 4 tools. The other thing that I wanted to talk about here is moving codes around. So of course we can move a code one at a time, and see when I'm moving it within this net, it's going to become a sibling of the one that I drop it under. If I move it out this way, it's going to become a sibling of control subnet. Okay, so you see the little blue line and how it's out at the same level as the control subnet. So if I drop that there, I just put controls flyaway hair. It is now a sibling. Okay, got that? Again, that's when we drag and drop. We can only drag and drop one code at a time. Okay. And again, that code will appear wherever that little blue line is. Now notice if I drag it inward, if I drag it inward, it tells me no, I can't do that. Because what it's trying to do is make controls flyaway hair a child of the manage. What is that? Manage something something, and we don't want to do that. So there we go. So the drag drop is a one at a time function. we also have the ability to move more than one code at a time. So let's say that I need to create a new net. I'm going to right-click, insert code below, so as a sibling of the controlled subnet. And I'm going to call this my Laura's net demo. There we go. And hit OK. So I probably should have toggled the net option there. So there's my new net. And now I can go through and I can, whoa, what did I do? Why did I toggle the focus? I know what I did. I can go through and I can select the codes that I want to move into my new net. You know, maybe I need to move all 4 or all 5 of these into my new net. So I select them, I right-click, move selection into my new net. So all of my selected codes were moved into my new net. So I can go ahead and deselect those guys. And I could move them back one at a time if I wanted to, or I could even just, for me, work like that. So I'm moving all my selected codes. All right. So the idea is, and we're not used to this because in review responses we can only move one code at a time. Here, when we're moving multiple codes, again, we're selecting them. We select what we want to move, we right-click where we want to move them, and we move selection below. But notice if I right-click on a net, I have that option to move the selection below or into. Into means they'll be reporting to the net. Below means that they're going to become siblings of the net. So into, descendants, below, siblings. Funny, that's the first time we've gotten into that in one of these demos. I'm glad somebody asked about that. Okay, so I've covered everything except for sorting. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sorting the code book. And you can sort, let me go ahead and deselect all. You can sort, you can sort by clicking the sort option. So you right-click on the codebook node with the codebook unlocked. And we can sort our codes. We can sort our codes. Here I'm going to be sorting the descendants. So it means I want to sort my codes. And I want to sort them in alpha order. Okay? And I'm going to sort the nets as well. And I'm going to sort the nets to the beginning. So what we do is we went through and noticed that now my overall neutral net, we sort application, ease, efficacy, so on and so forth. And then the codes that reported were sorted as well. Okay? Now for me, I can get that back pretty easy by going back and sorting by the output ID because I had everything numbered. The thing to remember is that if you're sorting, you are permanently changing the structure of the code book. It's changing the structure. All right? We do have a visual sort when the code book is locked for when we're coding, okay, because we can only code with the code book locked. And that visual sort is actually on the when locked setting, and it says codes only viewed. And we will be going over this again when we talk about the code toolbar, the codebook toolbar. When I'm in Show Codes Only view, I can show my codes sorted by description, but it's just a view. It's a temporary view of the code book. I can sort them by output value if I like, but notice the thing to know here is that when we're looking at these, it's showing us the code book the way Phrase Analyzer shows us the code book today when we first navigate into Phrase Analyzer. You know, alpha sorted, but we also have the option to do it by output ID, codebook order, which is the order that we created them in, by long help, hover help, frequency, so on and so forth. Okay. When we're in Show Code Only view, the node at the top that shows us how many responses have been coded out of our total base does not display. Okay. So just note that. That's been a common support question that I did want to make sure, because this does stick. If I turn this on and leave and come back in tomorrow, No matter which question I go to, this view will be in play. So I need to click that again to bring my nets back. Okay? And I didn't talk much about the counts and the percentages. I probably should say a little bit about that. The Codebook node, when we have our counts and percentages on, it tells us that 45 responses out of 299 have been coded, or 15% have been coded. So this is kind of an overall count for our current response base. The counts and percentages on our actual codes are telling us the same thing. 26 responses were given the all other price value economy code, which is 8% of 299. All right. If you're interested in the number that's displayed in review responses today, then you would click the information. You would right-click on your code and choose information, and this will show you that yes, there are 26 codes supplied. It's 8.69% of the responses, or 57.77% of the responses coded. Okay, and then we do have a respondent percentage as well, and that's respondents. I believe it's respondents in the study, I think. All right, so those are the things that I wanted to show today. Were there any other questions that came up, Julie?
Not right now, but if anybody wants to type something in the chat window, we'll be able to answer it.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing, I do have one more thing to cover. A common question is, you know, in review responses, we can highlight some text and then drag it over to the code book to add it as a code. We can't do that here, but what we can do is highlight the text and then right-click and insert code, and that highlighted text will come in as the code description. So I now have a no more frizz code. Okay. Wanted to make sure that I covered that one. Anything else come up? And I'm fine to ask. Nothing else? Okay. Well, good. I will, again, encourage everyone to be using Ascribe Coder and letting us know anything that you run into, any questions that you might have. We're really interested in why you are going back to review responses or why you're going back to the single response coder interface. And just let us know that when you have to do that and why, so that we can look into it and be ready for our June version 8 release.